r/NeckBeardStories by Redmond Dietis. Living with two neckbeards and a legbeard. Part 4. Hey Reddit peoples. Parts 1 to 3. Video links in the descriptions. I'm back again. So, Carrie and I have been in full-blown Halloween mode lately and have been getting all the last finishing touches ready for our costumes this year. Like honestly, who'd have thought getting silver hairspray would be so difficult? Anyway, this is what sparked the memory of this tale, and since we're in the spooky season, it seemed appropriate to share this now. So this was our second, and last, Halloween living with the Neckbeard clan. The previous year we had to deal with Mike and Janice's comments about our costumes. Carrie and I had opted to go as Chucky and Tiffany, which sort of pissed Mike and Janice off as they wanted us all to do a group costume. They'd wanted us to go as Nightmare on Elm Street characters, with Mike and Janice being Freddy and Nancy and myself and Carrie being Glenn and Tina. They'd planned our outfits to the very last detail, including the crop top that Glenn wears and Tina's oversized shirt, but they were so considerate that they let Carrie know she could wear hot pants instead of just underwear. Wow. I'm sure you can all guess how well they took the news that we'd already planned our outfits. A hell of a lot of bitter comments. However, the bitter comments didn't last too long and soon turned creepy, as they tended to do with this pair, and they opted to talk to me like a child, as had become a habit with them, and told me how adorable I looked in my little dungarees. Although Carrie, as usual, got it worse. She was told countless times how her dress was just the perfect length for such a beautiful and seductive character. They also went out of their way to talk about how sexy Tiffany was, in doll form might I add, and would make sure to loop the comment back to Carrie. Like essentially calling her sexy constantly without explicitly saying it, if that makes sense. Then that way they could just deny that they were talking about Carrie. I don't know guys, it just kinda weirded us out. Needless to say, Carrie and I didn't feel like hanging around with a creepy couple for Halloween this year, so we'd opted to take my little cousin out trick-or-treating. Mike and Janice complained about our costumes as they were too babyish. Says the pair that took great pleasure in talking to me like a toddler the year prior. We'd went as Cosmo and Wanda from Fairly Odd Parents, and my little cousin dressed as Timmy as this was his favorite cartoon. I don't know what the beard couple were expecting us to dress as. We were taking a child out trick-or-treating after all, so obviously it wasn't going to be inappropriate. We decided to go trick-or-treating with my little cousin for a couple of hours, then hop on the train to meet up with some friends from our drama group and go to a few pubs. However, we told Janice, Mike and Declan that we were going to Carrie's sister's house for a drink so they wouldn't follow us. Janice and Carrie's sister hate each other. Mike and Janice had planned to stay at home to drink, smoke, eat sweets and watch TV. So, basically the usual for them. Whilst Declan was going out for a few drinks with some friends, it honestly amazes me that people would willingly be around him, to be honest. Not too long after dinner, my auntie came over to drop the wee man off, as well as a pumpkin spice scented candle to battle the neckbeard smell. Effing legend. We didn't really want him to be in the flat for too long. Carrie and I really had tried to keep the place clean. We really had. But the mess was so difficult to contain at this point. There was so many takeaway containers, and seeing as we only had one green bin, there often wasn't enough room to fit them all in. There was one time where my uncle had offered to take all the rubbish to the dump for us if we bagged it all up. There were 8 full bean bags just full of their rubbish. It was humiliating. Anyhow, we brought the Wii into our room, the only clean room in the flat, so that we could grab jackets, wallets, purses, etc. Until Carrie decided to put some thicker tights on, as it gets pretty cold here, and we decided to give her some privacy. Which, unfortunately for us, meant standing awkwardly in the living room with the Mike and Janice. At the very least we didn't have to deal with Declan, as he'd already headed off to the gym, no doubt to try and impress some pretty ladies with his manly scent. Body odor. Mike wasn't really a fan of kids. Not like he hated them or anything, but he just never seemed to know how to interact with them, which led to him avoiding them altogether. Janice on the other hand often told us that she wanted to have a child one day and how she was going to be such a great mum. That's debatable. So she was often a bit too eager to spend time with kids. Mike's face dropped a little when we entered the living room. He said hi to me and greeted my little cousin with an alright wee man and a half wave. However, Janice's eyes lit up. I'm just gonna call my little cousin Tommy for the rest of the post. Tommy just sort of waved back, then returned to excitedly chattering away to me about how many sweets he was going to get. This is when Janice decided to head over to see Tommy. I saw her head over, arms outstretched, and quickly scooped Tommy up into my arms before Janice could pick him up. I know Carrie and I weren't the best at keeping ourselves safe from our neckbeard roommates, but there was no way in hell I was letting Janice get close to my little cousin. We tried to keep a distance between our families and the Beard clan, so, for the most part, the only information they had on mine and Carrie's families were through the minor interactions that couldn't be avoided and through them practically Facebook stalking us. She looked pretty disappointed that she couldn't lift him up, but she was persistent, deciding to try and make small talk with Tommy instead. She'd asked him about his costume at first, which Tommy was all too excited to tell her about, and then continued to speak to him for another 10 minutes. I'd interject sometimes when things got too personal, like when she asked what school he went to. Not that I didn't trust them. Well, let's be honest, I didn't. But also, my aunt had been through a pretty rough split up with her ex-partner, Tommy's dad, and had opted to not tell anyone who wasn't a friend or family where the wee man went to school in case something happened. Besides, it is just kinda weird to ask a kid that you barely know what school they go to. She then started to gear the conversation towards where we'd be going trick-or-treating, getting really specific about what houses, streets we'd be going to, etc. This immediately set off alarm bells. She was trying to figure out where we'd be going so she and Mike could accidentally bump into us when we were out and come trick-or-treating with us. This is something they'd done several times in the past, including on Carrie's birthday. Thankfully, Tommy was too young to be able to answer her questions, and I was as vague as possible with my answers. Now, I know some people might think I'm an idiot for not just taking Tommy outside to wait, but he is a very sociable boy and he'll talk to anyone. But he does scare quite easily, thanks to his dad, Wanker, so if I let one that anything was wrong or that I was uncomfortable, then chances were he'd notice and get upset. And trust me, Janice would not have been opposed to causing a scene if needed. Also, my mind's sort of gone blank on how we got to this point, but I do remember them taking a bit of tablet that they'd both been effing eating and putting it in Tommy's trick-or-treat bag to get him started. Needless to say, it was thrown in the bucket the second we left the house. And Mike had made some sort of attempt at a joke, warning Tommy not to eat too many sweets and taking out his dentures as an example of what might happen. Even Tommy, a literal child, didn't find this funny. Thankfully, Carrie came out of the bedroom and we got ready to leave. On our way out, we checked the sweets we'd left outside. Neither of us really trusted Mike and Janice to hand out the sweets to the kids, so we'd opted to make up about 30-40 goodie bags of sweets and leave them outside for the trick-or-treaters to help themselves too. There were a few gone at this point, due to parents wanting to get the trick-or-treating done while it was still light, but there were still loads left. We'd only been out for about an hour when we bumped into a family friend who'd been to our street not too long ago, and she casually mentioned that there were only a couple of bags left at our house. It was still pretty early and we hadn't seen a massive amount of kids out, but we chalked it up to kids taking more than one bag and pretty much forgot about it. Until we got home and found sweet wrappers all over the place. These dirty, lousy bastards had eaten at least 20 odd trick-or-treat bags to themselves, on top of all the sweets they'd been eating all day. How in the hell is it even possible to eat that much sugar? Their excuse was that those were the leftover bags, clearly not when they were almost gone only an hour after we'd left. Mike then argued that it didn't matter if they'd eaten some of the sweets because the kids would be getting more than enough sweets anyway. They didn't need these ones. We yelled at them, but there wasn't really too much we could do. The sweets were gone and Halloween was over. We'd stayed out all night and only found out what they did in the morning. I can't really think of anything else that they did. This is kind of a tame one, I guess. Although, I do believe Declan might have gotten a few knockbacks when he was out, as he spent the next couple days pissed off and bitching about how girls that dress like sluts then act offended when they are shown bit of male attention are so effing pathetic, and why can't girls put effort into their Halloween costumes like they do for conventions? Hot pants and a tail is pretty effing sad. Ah yes, because all girls must choose their costumes based on Declan's dress code. God, I feel like a total dong just writing what he said. But, needless to say, someone must have turned down his dashing good looks, many odor and amazing personality. There's not really much to add to this post. I might post about the reason we moved out, and the massive fallout, pretty soon, then just sort of add in little fun anecdotes about life with the Neckbeard clan in with us. I say that until Carrie mentioned something that brings back more horrifying memories of living with these people and I end up posting more. We'll see what happens. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. Have a nice evening.